Okay, welcome to Grue, and thanks so much for coming on the show and being a guest.
Yeah, man, of course. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Definitely, bud. For since I came on late, I usually do introduction, and then before the guest comes on, I do an introduction, and then the guest, but I didn't have time to do that, so uh your name
Look,
is Zach Canon,
you
right?
just rush me on, man. Just it's the faster I'm on, the faster I'm on. Like this is good for business.
so, so Zach Canon, that's how you say your name, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. I don't, because sometimes someone says their name a different way. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was all good.
Yeah, go for it. You're all good. Even if you butcher it, it's been worse. So
Okay. So, so like the first thing I want to start out asking you is probably a question that gets asked all the time is what drew you to want to act?
man, I was 5 years old when I started acting professionally. So I was one of those child actor kids that could have ended up a cokehead, a long time ago had things actually been successful. So there's pros and cons, to not having success, or at least the one that you want. But I know my aunt used to work in a magazine company in New York, and she tried to get my cousins to do it, and they hated it. And I liked attention. And so naturally getting paid to be the center of attention was a very alluring thought for me. So yeah, when I did my first professional thing at 5 and I made money, and my older brothers were very angry that I could afford Nintendos and they couldn't, I knew that this was for me.
Hey, those game systems were the thing, like the Nintendo and Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. Like if you had money to buy that, you were gold.
Oh, look, everybody wanted to come to your house at that point.
Exactly.
That was the point. So, whenever PlayStation 2 came out, it was end game.
You're absolutely right. I remember like sitting back and playing those systems compared to like a PlayStation 4 and 5 now. Like you can't compare the graphics. Like I'm like back then I was like, oh my god, these graphics are incredible.
And now you look back, I mean, it's like when you play GoldenEye on 64, you're like, how this is still the best game of all time, I don't quite understand. But it's still fantastic. The hilarious part is that nobody ever actually wanted to be James Bond in 007.
Yeah.
Like nobody cared. They just wanted to be Odd Job or whatever, and just duck underneath the one shot, one kills.
Definitely, yeah. and, and I was like looking up your films and stuff, like your page,
Yeah.
and it looks like was your very first role for film in the film Torn Apart that starred Tia Carrera.
Yeah. So that was, I mean, my first TV was I did, if you remember, America's Most Wanted, back when that was a huge thing on Fox. So that was my first lead that I had, was when I was 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was kind of wild because we shot that in the house that the murder happened.
Really?
In Louisiana, which is trippy enough. Like, you're literally like, that was where that woman died. And the trippy part about it as well was not only did they have all the SWAT team and everything, the local police departments and everything there for the reenactment, but the third day of filming was 9/11. So there's just this whole different vibe that kind of happened when you're on set, because everybody, when you ask them where were you when it happened, I remember being in a La Quinta Inn in Mandeville, Louisiana, watching the news with my mom, trying to get a grip on what's actually happening. And then you have to go show up to work, and thankfully they had Go-Gurts at craft services, because that was the only thing that was keeping me going, was Go-Gurts, if you remember those. Fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's just such an interesting time. And it was funny because my mom thought there's no way I would want to do this after
Yeah.
that. That is the most intense
Well, yeah, of
environment. And
course.
I walked away going, when's the next one?
Oh,
Like,
wow.
let's do it. So whether that's the mind of a psycho or somebody that just has to do it, I mean, split the difference if you want. But
It's the mind of someone that has passion.
yeah, like I think it was J.K. Simmons said it. He goes, the amount of times that I nearly got on the bus and left.
Yeah.
And I'd actually bought a ticket and was waiting at the bus station and just couldn't get on the bus. And he gave this advice. He said, to anybody that can get on the bus, get on the bus. He's like, if you can't get on the bus, then that's your answer. And I think that's, if anything else would make me remotely happy as coming off of a 14-hour shoot, 16-hour shoot, and you go, I'm obliterated, but that was great. Then I'd do that, because this is not, the rest of this industry is not fun. But
yeah, exactly.
But there's those moments that you hold on to and you go, this is, why would you want to do anything else, if that makes sense?
You're right. So like that film I mentioned, I'm a huge Tia fan. Like
Dude, she was
Wayne's World, like come on.
It's funny, she used to walk around set all day singing It's Raining Men, and she had pipes, dude. She could sing.
No, she's a really good singer. Like no one really knows that, but she made an album and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, she and honestly, she was just amazing, because that was my first film. But I think I had 9 or 10 scenes in that, and all of them were with her.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah, all of them were with her. And it was this, she was a doctor on the run being accused of malpractice or something. I'm trying to track what it was. But she would hide in my room. And so that was all the connections about it. And there was actually one story, because I remember they wanted Virginia Madsen for that role. And how I had that information as a 12-year-old, I don't know, but they said, cut, we're gonna have to redo this. Tia, and they made a joke. They're like, finally we got somebody that's working with Tia, and I was like, yeah, we fired Virginia Madsen. And she looked back and goes, how did you know that? I was like, nah. My mom was like, shut up.
Yeah. Tia, like when I watch Wayne's World, like it was just a huge crush. Like,
yeah, no, look, worth every ounce. But she was just an amazing.
Yeah.
I think also just the level of professionality and just how good she was with me as a 12-year-old, right? Like, she was so engaged, and every part of the way was, it was just, it's one of those where you're trying to find the language for it, but you couldn't have asked for somebody better in the industry to kind of almost parent you, in a sense, on your first bigger one,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then like it seemed like you bounced around in these films with like these great woman leads, because then I saw your first horror film was Locust with Xena, Lucy Lawless.
I didn't get to meet Lucy, but I did get to meet John Hurd. So John was shooting on the same day as us. I think it was only a 2 or 3 day shoot, and so he was wonderful. I got my picture with John, and other people like, who's that? And I'm like, the dad in Home Alone. And they go, oh. No, I never got to meet Lucy, but it was funny, because people would always say that. They're like, you go from the True Lies bad villain to then Xena Warrior Princess. They're like, it's not bad. I'm like, I just go where they tell me, man. I'm 12.
Nice. And by that being your first horror, then I saw many years later that I want to ask, like, I actually watched the series and I loved it. Like, how was it like being part? I mean, how did you want to getting to be part of the horror series DemonHuntr?
So Tim O'Leary, who's the director creator of DemonHuntr, is a longtime friend.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
very long time friend. So I met Tim when I was doing an internship in the West Village in New York when I was 20 years old, and there was a gym right next to this theater, and I was living out in Canarsie Rockaway, which is, if you're familiar with New York, it's a long ass trip from the end of the L line plus a bus ride into the West Village every single day.
Oh,
So
wow.
I
That
needed
is
a
long.
place to be able to shower, right, and to
Yeah.
kind of do this. And this gym was right next door, and I walked in, and very bougie gym, which it's like I'm living this far out. It was free rent, which is why I was
Okay.
that far out. It's an unpaid internship, and Tim was one of the salespeople for the gym at the front desk. And so I walked in, and Tim was the first person I met. And whenever I moved to LA, he had just moved, and his partner Rob was doing a show in Florida. And he goes, "Just come stay on my living room floor." He's like, "Rob's gone for 2 months," and so that was even my transition to LA,
Oh,
was
wow.
drinking Cosmos with Tim while watching movies that came out. Like that was our bonding experience. So having known Tim for that long, it was kind of a no-brainer to really jump on anything that he does, just because you have to value relationships
Yeah.
in this industry. A lot of people say it's not what you know, it's who you know, which is true. But I kind of take it a step further, and you can know people that are buttheads and you don't want to work with, you know what I mean? But then people who are just good people. And
Yeah.
it went from Tim selling me a gym membership to me being at his wedding to now we get to do fun, goofy projects together that are actually good, like
They
Tim's a
really are.
goofball. He's a straight goofball, but he's onto something. And I think it's fun to be around good people that are also on something, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And for anyone who hasn't seen DemonHuntr, which you should, it's a great horror series on here television. That's where it airs at here TV. Can you tell us a little bit about who you played on DemonHuntr?
Yeah, Tim just called me and he goes, "Hey, do you want to wear a bunch of red body paint and a loincloth?" And I was like, "Sure." Like, yeah, we'll do that. So I mean, honestly, I just came on for a day roll for
Yeah.
it, and it was fun because I got to be in the place where they introduce all the demon hunters at one point. It's the first time that they're all together. Is after the point I've been conjured out of thin air, if you will. But no, I mean, we were in the back room while he's cutting up a t-shirt, and like I'm butt naked, and he's just like, "This is how you know you've been friends for a long time." And he's just like duct taping this diaper to me as I, to play this goblin, and it's just red body paint. And I'm going, this is what friends are for, I guess. So he owes me favors, I owe him favors. We try not to disclose the terms of the favors, but there we are.
There you go. Okay. And, so how long did it take for like the body paint, the makeup, and all that?
Long time. 3 to 4 hours.
Oh,
Probably
wow, really?
just
That long?
sitting. Yeah, it was a really long time. And the beautiful thing about when you're operating on a micro budget is you get to bring in people that are really good, and it's might be the first time that they're doing, they've gone to school and done all that
Yeah.
stuff. So there was a young girl who was doing it, and she was fresh out of school, and she crushed it. She did such a good job, but just sat there, hung out, and got red paint shoved in my body. I think the most fun though was coming home and scaring housemates at the time, because my wife was back in the UK, and so that was more enjoyable than anything, was the terror that they witnessed.
Oh my God, that's so funny. and and what did you love most about being on set for DemonHuntr?
I think one thing that Tim does really well is he fosters an environment that's fun. Like it's really just about being fun. I do joke with him about insurance because I did hit my knee really hard on a bed frame, and I think his ghost left his body, came back and repopulated at a different point in the show because he was white. And I was in pain. So that was not necessarily my favorite memory of it, but it was a cold night in LA, and I'm literally running outside. It had rained, I think, running outside onto wet pavement, just nearly butt naked. So when you ask what the best part of it was, there's not really a best part. It's just more like an amalgamation of stories that are humorous.
There you go. There you go. And the one thing with DemonHuntr that I really like where Tim went is that up until like that show, there really wasn't a lot of full frontal with men. Like
Yeah.
if you see like a TV series or a movie when the guy gets naked, it's usually just his butt. And you know, the girl, you see everything with the girl,
Yeah.
and the guy, you only get to see the butt. But like Tim went there and had quite a few scenes with a lot of full frontal male nudity, and I'm happy he actually took a bold chance on doing that.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm sure we'll talk about it because Tim and I just did another project together, and which there was full frontal in there for me, and I've had people reach out and they're like saying the same thing, like, oh, it's a really refreshing thing to see that. I'm so glad that that's in your repertoire, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I go, it is, but it's in there according to relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think it has to be the same sensitivity that we've grown accustomed to or getting better at when it comes to women in film and nudity in their body, which is, let's do this tastefully. Let's not go full 80s and 90s, sort of dynamic here, but let's give you the choice. Does this serve it? Does it not serve it, so to speak? So I think I always land there with that. And for Tim, he's creating a very specific niche world.
Yeah.
But it's also safety. I'm such a big fan of people's internal world being taken care of when it's on set, and it's a vulnerable thing. So if you don't feel safe, then that's where that conversation, I guess, needs to be had. So,
Right.
I'm all for it. I'm all for things serving the story, and it did that in such a fun way in Demon
Yeah,
Huntr.
definitely did.
Again, it's what world are you creating, and it's in the comical level 11, sort of way that he did it.
Yeah, it was very well done. Like it wasn't done to make it look like a porno or anything. It was very well made, very well done, and that's what I liked about the series.
Yeah, and I think that's where you want to hang your hat again with people that you're working with, because you don't want somebody to just go, okay, take your kid off. It's and I'm like, okay, I'm just kidding. But yeah, again, it's just about people, and it's about certain projects. And there's times that I'll say no because I'm like, I'm not bringing anything to that.
Exactly. But then after DemonHuntr, like you worked with Tim again, and there's another horror short that you're part of, the third. So can you tell us a little bit about the short?
Yeah, it's up on YouTube, so anybody can kind of go check it out on YouTube, and it's a roller coaster of a short. A lot happens. You've seen it. A lot happens.
I've seen it. A lot happens in that.
In a very short amount of time. And
Yes.
it was funny when Tim called me about that. He goes, "This is not your normal wheelhouse, but I want you to kind of take a look at it and read it." And you know, like with anything, I check with my wife. I'm like, "How do you feel? Like, you know, are you good?" I'm like, I love being married and being in this industry because it's a team game.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
there's a ton of value. And I just did a project and with a longtime friend who is my co-star, and there's a couple makeout scenes in it. And looking over at my wife who's on set running everything, and she's like, "Connection's great on that one." Keep going. I'm like, and so I'll tell more stories about that later if you want. But
Oh, that's funny.
It is a thing with being on set for this, for the third. And yeah, I mean, it's just fun to make things with friends. And I think it's fun for me to watch my friends' reaction to watching them watch that one. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's the third. It's on YouTube by Tim O'Leary. And it's a fun watch.
It is. It's a fun little short, and you're absolutely right. Like, a lot happens in that. Like, it starts out, you think it's a normal couple, but then you quickly find out it's not so normal.
And fair warning to anybody, you see a lot of me. So if you don't want to see a lot of me, which I totally understand, then by all means, put the parental block on your YouTube before you search for it.
Yeah, for anyone who's under the age of 18 years old, Zach is full frontal and back too, so you see everything on Zach in this short.
It was more than I've seen personally of myself. And I got an education. So there we go.
And when your wife is on set and seeing you fully nude with another man making out with them, and she's giving you the thumbs up, that's awesome.
Well, I mean, this one was with a girlfriend. So this one wasn't an LGBTQ.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's still the same thing. No matter who it is, it's always nice when you have the backing of your partner.
Oh, of course, yes. And like, how did, when you get ready for something like this, like I wanted to ask you that, and when you're getting ready to film a fully nude scene, and you know that everyone's gonna see everything, like, how do you prepare yourself for that? Like, oh my God, it's like my mom or dad gonna see this or something,
Well, it's nothing that they haven't seen before, thankfully. I was a child at one point. But there are people that aren't gonna like it, and that's totally fine. I'm like, there's a beautiful thing we call choice, where you get to love me and not watch the thing that's gonna make you uncomfortable. If you see that, or and it varies. Not everybody knows the type of projects that I will and won't do, that sort of thing. I'm very story driven with what I want to do. I like to tell a great story, or I like to have a lot of fun while I'm doing it. So those are going to be the main motivations for it. But again, because for me, nudity often serves the story. And for this, how it served the story was the shock value. Like,
well, yeah, exactly.
What is happening?
Exactly.
More than anything. So I think in that regard, it becomes like there's so much going on, you're not even almost paying attention to the amount of phallic dynamics in the ethos. So for me, it's less about mentally preparing than anything. I think I don't know, I've always been pretty comfortable in my adult years with nudity in general, just because it's normal,
it is.
And my wife is European, so there's also those dynamics where America fetishizes a lot of things a lot more than the UK and the rest of Europe will, because it's just a much more normal thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
all that into play, I think if you think about it in a strictly American context, then yeah, you could be like, oh, this is so weird. But then if you think about it in a French dynamic, it's like, okay.
Yep. Yep. No, you're absolutely right with that. Like America, it's like more like, oh my God, he's nude. And but then like you said, the other places, France and England, like it's kind of normal.
Yeah, and it's normalized, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that I'm a big fan of cutting that line between what's sexuality and what's affectionate, what's
Yeah.
all those different things, and they don't all have to overlap. They do sometimes, but because nudity in itself isn't inherently sexual, it's I mean, my father-in-law, he's an artist. He's a pretty well-respected artist in Wales,
Hmm.
and my wife grew up doing figure drawing classes when she was
Oh,
7
okay.
8 years old. So these are the sort of dynamics that are kind of woven into our family line, where you're like, this is bigger than how small people like to make it, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. So what do you like doing during your free time when you're not acting and auditioning for films?
I love sports,
Oh,
like
nice.
like
Okay.
I'm a big sports fan. I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And I actually just finished a contract with a company called Candy Digital, and I was doing all of their baseball NFT, like for their daily products. So if you're
Yeah,
familiar with
yeah.
baseball cards, it's the digital version, the online community where there's the trading within the online community. Oh, what'd you get out of it? It's like Pokemon, right? Like, what did you get? What did you get? And instead of you being at your neighbor's house, you are in your online community doing the same thing.
Mhm.
So my job was literally to watch baseball, to find the best play of the day, and I would tweet, throughout the night and keep up with those dynamics and liaison with the Major League Baseball. But yeah, my job was to watch baseball and create a product the next day. I'm
Wow,
going,
that's awesome.
this is awesome,
Yeah,
right? Because
definitely.
I grew up a big baseball fan, but that's in that realm of where you're getting paid to do what you're good at, and it almost feels like stealing. In a way, you're like, this is kind of strange, because I would have probably done half of this without this job anyway.
Yeah.
But we live in downtown, and so I'm a couple blocks from Crypto Arena, and so we'll walk to go see a Clippers game or a Lakers game, or
Okay.
I'm a 25-minute bus ride from Dodger Stadium. So it's that
Sweet.
sort of thing that kind of keeps my enjoyment levels going, because there's a communal aspect, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. Nice, man. And as you could tell with the background, like I'm a big horror fan,
Yeah.
and you know, watching you in your horror stuff too. Like, is there any horror films that you like to watch?
Here's where the sacrilege comes in, pun intended, is I'm actually not a horror fan.
Oh, really?
I'm not. Like, it's never been a genre I've deeply connected with. But
Okay.
I think that's what also makes it fun to come in and do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's not the emotional attachment
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to it.
Exactly.
So then you can kind of come, and you're not playing it according to, oh, this is like, from a fan perspective, you're almost getting to come and play it from a, yeah, what would happen in this scenario, if that makes sense. So I think for me, I'm a big thriller fan. I enjoy thrillers like that.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
engaging. I think the first one I ever saw when I was a kid, my parents were quite strict, but I watched A Flight Plan with Jodie Foster, which is on the tame
Oh, I
side
saw that. Yeah. Yeah.
of the thriller side. But I went, this is a lot, because I get so invested into the storylines. Now anytime I watch anything thriller based, it's like, we just watched We Need to Talk About Kevin, and I'm just, I detach as I'm watching so that I can enjoy it. Because if I'll get too sucked in to what's happening, which is why I think I have a hard time with horror, because I have such a vivid imagination and I have a really vivid dream life. So I don't necessarily want to take the film with me while I sleep.
True.
So,
you're right. You're right.
so I think there's dynamics where I'll watch it and I can kind of detach a little bit and enjoy the fun. But I would say if I had to put in any sort of horror genre, Get Out is, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Movies, I've seen them, and I saw it when it came out, and it's still to this day it holds up. It's just such a good film in general.
It's a really good film.
Sorry if that disappoints you that I wasn't bringing out the new Chucky series, and
not everyone likes horror. I talk to a lot of people that aren't horror fans. I mean, you like other films. I like horror. Someone likes drama. Someone likes no one's the same.
No, and I think that's what's so much fun. I just got a library card the other day because we're 3 blocks from the library. And there's a streaming service that's specific to the library called Canopy. So if nobody's ever done that, get a library card, check out Canopy. You get 9 free movies every month.
Really?
On there. But it's amazing art house stuff. Like it'll blow your mind what they have on there. And it was a great horror selection too. I know horror. I don't necessarily, but I don't watch it, but I know it, right? So I'm like, this is a good selection that they have. I would highly encourage people to check out Canopy, because it's stuff that you rent on Amazon Prime if you wanted to watch. Yeah. But it's going to be on there.
All right, I'm gonna check it out. I'm curious. That's the first time I ever heard of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was where I watched. I think it's called Supernova with Stanley Tucci and Colin Firth. Where they play a married couple, and they go on an RV trip because Stanley Tucci's character is dying. So I had never even come across that film until I was on Canopy, and I went, oh, well, of course I'm going to watch Stanley Tucci and Colin Firth play. Like, why not? And watched Disobedience with Rachel McAdams, and that. Like, you're not going to find that on any other streaming service. So it's just these art house stuff that you can catch, and I'm so excited because I don't want to pay $10 every time. I want to watch something that feels like it's feeding the artistic side of my soul.
All right, yeah, I'm definitely gonna check it out. And what about songs and music? Like, what kind of music you like listening to? Like, what's on your playlists?
And I love Bob Dylan.
Sweet.
I'm a bit of an old soul in a lot of when it comes to music, and I loved that Bob had a terrible singing voice. Like, he was awful. I mean, it genuinely sounded like a record scratching most of the time. And yet there was this thing that you can't move away from. And you're kinetically drawn to the stuff that he's doing. And I love Van Morrison, and I just saw him at the Hollywood Bowl, and that was such a great show. But lately there's a band called the Menzingers I picked up. It was a random vinyl of theirs that I picked up in their current band, and went, this is great. So I more pick up things like that as I go, rather than my wife, something starts within 0.5 seconds, she knows exactly what it is. We were just at a Friendsgiving where skin tonally we were very much a minority, very much, and she was showing people up with her knowledge of gangster rap. I mean, and she's this
my god
little Welsh girl, and then she's like, that's this, and they're going, talking to somebody who I know is in the music industry, like doing well, and she's like, no, it's this, and she goes, no, it's this, looks it up, and he's like, damn, you're right. So it's funny because we end up bringing all these things where we balance one another out. So I kind
Oh,
of
I
go
love it.
and I find things and I'm like, that sounds good. She's like, oh, don't you know this? And I'm like, play it for me. And then I go, oh yeah, I've heard it. Yeah, of course I know that song, but I can't tell you their name. Can't tell you, when it came out or anything else, but I know the song. I will tell you though.
She's really good.
Oh, dude, she's awesome. I will tell you though, you can't play Lil Wayne without me wanting to just hush everybody up and go, just listen. Just listen. Oh, I mean, he's a genius. We were talking the other day, we're like, the world kind of needs a Wayne and Drake collab right now, because I think the conversation went that they've never actually had one where they're on it at the same time. They've done collab albums, but I don't think Drake has the flow anymore.
Yeah,
but he's got the hooks. And Wayne, look, that guy is, I think he's one of the best poets.
Oh, he is.
Modern society. Gosh.
Definitely, hands down.
The imagery, and I think, because I read poetry, I'll pick up poetry books and read them. I'll go to books and read through the poetry books. And I think that for me is what Wayne is. I'm like, if this was in a poetry book, I would just sit and read it for hours. But, thankfully I just get to listen.
So would Lil Wayne be someone you would sing for karaoke? Like, what would be like a go-to song for you?
Either Abortion or 6 Foot 7 Foot. Like those Carter albums are just yeah. Well, we can cut it there. I mean, like that's where the fun is for me. It's just such good music. But again, my limitation will go, I've heard all this stuff. Well, can I tell you which album it was? No, I can't. Can I tell you that? No, I can't. But I know I've heard it. I know I like it. I know it's good.
There you go. Okay. And what's your usually your drink of choice? Like, what do you like drinking when you go out?
Well, I've been a bartender for 6-7 years, and so I usually will try to stay to stuff that I don't have the ingredients for at home, because I'm not going to pay 18 to 20 bucks for something that I can make better.
You're right.
No, not to be a butthead, but it's like I can make it better, and I know that I can. So I'm just gonna give me a beer, that sort of thing. But it is funny whenever I have friends over, because they come over and I'll make drinks, but there's sometimes my good friends, I go, I'm exhausted. You want something yourself, pour it. I'm not making anything tonight. And we're going to watch a movie. We're going to chill out. But yeah, I think at home, if I'm doing it, I do a lot of Manhattans, a lot of old fashions, and lots of different fun variations. I have a smoker that I use at home. So it's just changing different profiles, playing with the levels of timing. I love about any variation of a Negroni that you can come up with. And yeah, man, there's a whiskey bar in downtown that I go to. It's called 7 Grand, and they've got an incredible. I mean, their happy hours until 8 p.m. It's $9 for a Manhattan, which I'm going, that's pretty decent for a whiskey.
That actually is, yeah.
You can get an Irish mule for $9, in a highball, and I'm like, this is downtown LA, and this is until 8 p.m. Like, let's go. So I grab a cigar, and they have a patio, and so that's because I can't smoke in our building. So I just walk across the street and grab a $9 Manhattan and take my cigar and go sit on the patio, and this is great.
Damn. Okay. That sounds fun. I
figure out my routines. The longer I've been married, the more I realize, thanks to the perception of somebody else, I have more particularities and routines than I would have ever told somebody else that I have. And then you have somebody that's going, that's really annoying, that? And I go, no, I didn't know that, but thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And lastly, like, is there anything coming up for you that you want to plug? Like, any stuff coming up for you? Film, TV?
Yeah, I just finished doing a film this past week, and I had a buddy and I were talking about it, and we said, like, let's just do something. I've had this short sitting in the closet, and it was optioned by a company out of the UK, and then the option ran out, and I went, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it myself. Like,
There
why
you
not?
go.
Like, let's just play around and do it. And so I started putting it together, and I had a friend that I'd worked with, a long time. We had the same manager and
Hmm.
writing partners, and so we've always wanted to do something. And she was over one day, and I let her read it, and she goes, "Can we do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, why not? Let's do this." So I'd reached out to my buddy, and he was going to do it, and one of the big, I won't say who it is, but one of the big companies in the area called him and needed him. He got hired to go do something else,
Gotcha.
which was going, that kind of sucks. And so I was scrambling a bit to try to find somebody who had any directorial experience, as it goes. And I reached out to somebody that I'd met a long time ago at a gala, and we had kept up, through the years. But his name's Dave Vengus, and if you look up his IMDb, it'll blow your mind. He was Spielberg's AD for years. He's John Favreau's AD. He's everything from Spider-Man to Quiet Place to Catch Me If You Can to Forrest Gump. Like, just it's crazy list, and he's just one of the good guys, the best guys in the industry that I've ever come across. Like, I met him at a gala that was about sex trafficking inside of LA, and every year he does a toy drive in Marina Del Rey. It's the largest donation to the hospitals every Christmas in LA County that he does, and he does a boat, and your admission onto the boat is toys.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring toys, that's your admission, and he throws a big party.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, so I reached out to Dave, and I didn't want to be too forward, and I went, "Do you know of anybody who would be interested in doing this?" And he goes, "Well, send me the script." And then I sent it to him, and he goes, "I'd be interested. I want to do this." And I went, "Okay, sure, Dave. Like, I am more than happy to have you come on and direct this." And so he jumped on, and I had hired a really great DP that I had worked with in the past, and we did a music video together, and I looked at it the other day, it had over 1 million views, and I went, "Oh,
Really? That's
not
awesome.
bad." But reached out to him. He was like, "Yeah, let's cut his rate down for me." And I was like, "Thank you very much." And we started putting it together. He had some sound equipment,
Okay.
and then Dave goes, "Are we set on sound?" And I went, "Yeah, we've got a boom, we've got different things." He goes, we're gonna need at least 2 loud. We're gonna need all these things." And he goes, "I got it covered." And you've actually done an interview with him. He called Ryan Ochoa, and
Oh, yeah.
the Ochoa brothers came, and they brought all their sound equipment because they had
Really?
they'd just done a feature that Dave had directed.
Wow.
And so Ryan and his brother Bobby came and ran sound
Oh
for
my
us.
God.
And
So awesome.
yeah, so it was just, it slowly began this thing, and there's some in UK, they work with big companies out there, and it's an editor and colorist who knew our actress that was in it, and they are booked out, and they were like, "Anything that you do to her, it's like, will help." So they're doing it, because they love her. So this thing slowly has grown to what would have been a budget that I can't actually fathom, right, for a 1-day shoot, to something that, I guess, when you have a good script, you have something that's, as a writer, you don't always know when you have something that's good, right? You have like, "Oh, this is this." I always joke that the more passionate people are about their own projects, the further you should stay away. Like, the more excited they are, bless them. It's wonderful. I'm so glad you're excited about your project, but I'm a big fan of accountability. And if you're so excited that there's no accountability, then this is probably not going to be the best project to work on. So, for me, I thankfully, when I was taught how to write, it's like, you write and you pass it off. You don't touch it.
Yeah.
after that point. So that's what I did. Wrote it, passed. I was like, my job as a writer is done.
Wow.
And so anytime he's like, how do you feel about these changes? I was like, you're in charge now. I'm like, I'm off. So it was just the fact that all of that came together in the blink of an eye, really. It started out with another friend that I went, let's just do this. And then all of a sudden it whirled around, and I'm looking at, Ryan and Bobby, who are just literally hanging out, and they had the time of their life, because obviously my wife was on set, and Shannon, who's my co-star, she, she's amazing. But they're looking at it going, bro, your wife is literally watching you make out with another girl, like right now. I'm like, yeah, I mean, work, like, that sort of thing. But those boys, I mean, they're awesome, love them to death. But again, it goes to show you that whenever you have good people, they came on because they love Dave.
Well,
so Dave does, we're gonna want to be a part of. And I think that, to me, speaks to the value of whenever you find good people, stick to your good people. So that project's in post right now. It's called Arthur and Annie.
Sweet. Arthur and Annie, I saw that on your page.
So that's in post. It's on its way to the editors right now. We just did our dailies on it, and it's we're excited about it. It's fun. It just slowly developed into something we're really proud of.
Nice.
And I think that's a rare thing, and that's a synthesis, that happens. And so yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to. And there's other things that are on the horizon. I've got a deadline for a feature that I've got to finish in about 10 days that I could probably use another 3 months. But yeah, that one's also on the IMDb as well. That one's called Born to Run, and it's with a company in the UK. So
wow, you definitely are busy.
I try, but look, it's got to stay fun. It has to stay fun. And I'm not a big fan of the hustle, like, because you kind of just drive yourself into the ground. So it has to be more about what's giving you life and what's enjoyable. And that's how you end up in relationships like this, like talking to you, is because, you're a fan of horror, you're a fan of what Tim was doing.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You're enjoying that. And that's kind of the connection. I prefer going about that organic route than, hey, I saw this, and what can we exchange? I'm like, there's no exchange here. This is just relationship. And I think that's what I really want to see, I guess, next generation in LA, is that this stuff becomes way more enjoyable for the relationships and the community that it develops, rather than can you give me something? Can I give you something? We both kind of know how this works.
And where could fans follow you at?
They just Instagram, really. I mean, I don't have the 2 or 3 verified check marks that Twitter now requires. I mean, we could try for it if we really wanted to, but it's Instagram at Zach_Canon. And yeah, keep along with IMDb. That's where a lot of stuff is. That helps my little star meter that, bless me, doesn't ever really go that high. Anytime I crack the 150s, 150,000s, I'm going, that was a good week.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your night. I really had a lot of fun chatting. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And yeah, give me a shout anytime.
Thank you, buddy. And I definitely would love to have you back on when you're ready to talk about more.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. Well, have a great night and great rest of the week, and have fun.
I will take that very seriously.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah, man.